In this city, you see some awful stuff, but there is nothing more awful than nothing. Nothing is boring, and when things get boring, people will do anything to make it interesting.
So, in my video about Devil May Cry 1, I explained how it pioneered a whole new genre, and with that, a sequel was inevitable. However, the main man who blocked me on Twitter, Hideki Kamiya, would not be directly involved with the series from this point on. With the original creator gone to do other things, how will the sequel fare? Well, let's find out. Here are my 2 cents on Devil May Cry 2. Just like the previous game in the series, Devil May Cry 2 would go through some changes in development. As I said, Hideki Kamiya would not be in charge of another Devil May Cry game, so someone had to take his place. Enter Hideki Itsuno, who became the director halfway through development of Devil May Cry 2. Anyway, the goal of this game was to make something bigger than DMC1. They even surveyed people to identify weak spots in the first game that they could fix in this one. This is what led to the creation of our female protagonist, Lucia. She was intended to be the sole character you play in the game, but that isn't what ended up happening. Dante was thrown in as a playable character rather late, as what I assume was a way to have more people buy the game. That being said, I really do like Dante's design in this game, maybe even more than the original. Well, when Devil May Cry 2 hit store shelves, it was a financial success despite not doing well with critics. So that's why I'm here. Devil May Cry 2 is often the most overlooked out of the whole series, including the reboot that's not canon. So after all this time, I'm gonna give it a fair shot to see if the negative criticism was warranted. Oh god, the critics were right. So yeah, this game is the worst Devil May Cry game by a long shot. But does that mean it's a truly awful game no one should play? Well, maybe. Okay, let's start with the story. After the events of DMC1, Dante is still kicking and finds some demons at a local art museum, as one does. After defeating them, this chick throws a dagger on a map, and I guess Dante just goes there for reasons. After roaming the streets for a bit, he finds a girl, Lucia, right before her house blows up. Then this old woman, Metier, gives Dante a task to defeat Arius. Arius is a wealthy businessman who uses the power of demons to get what he wants, and what he wants now is, well, power. Capitalism, am I right? Well, the man wants to be immortal or something and needs these items, arcanas, to do it. It is also revealed that Metier is a descendant of a clan of humans that helped Sparta, Dante's daddy, fight off the demons. I guess with nothing better to do, Dante agrees, and after a flip of a coin, he's off. And that's really where his story stops. I mean, sure, he does kill Arius, kind of, but he doesn't really have any reason to be here besides big bad dude must be stopped. The story of DMC2 is more focused on Lucia that has more of a personal and thematic connection to the story. Lucia was trained to fight devils by Metier, who is like a mother to her. It is later revealed that she is a demonic creation made by Arius, which adds some depth to her character. Her arc is basically coming to terms that she is not a devil, and that her past doesn't matter. Dante even comes out with that devils never cry line, which honestly I rather like. Though I don't think it's earned as well as it was in the last game. Dante is sent into the underworld, where Lucia deals with a powered-up Arius now fueled by the powers of capitalism. Though it does make him into this nightmare fuel, which I guess is thematically appropriate. DMC2 is a very political game, you guys. Anyway, the game ends with this MCU-style post-credit scene where Lucia is shown in Devil May Cry as we can hear a motorcycle in the distance. Lucia's story is one that, while not super deep, at least could have been a lot stronger. I think the main issue comes from Dante. Now, I get having him in this story as a pseudo-mentor, as Lucia and Trish have a lot of similarities, even both of them being created by the big bad of the game, but Dante doesn't really say much of anything, even when fighting bosses. That cool and cocky Dante is gone, and we get a much more serious, closed-off Dante that just doesn't work in this story. Or at least, doesn't work the way they have it. He barely has any lines, and it's very apparent when the post-credit scene repeats at least 75% of his dialogue in flashback form. On the subject of dialogue, it can be downright awful at times, though I honestly think it's mainly the direction.
I was created Every hero has a weakness.
You are not human. You are just a monster. A monster that I created.
Dante told me. Devils never cry.
Now I'll absorb his power. I will become an all-powerful immortal.
Also, why does Dante flip a coin to make decisions now? Is he Two-Face or something? Oh, no, it's just to set up this twist that the coin was a double-sided coin. Wow. Anyway, Dante is not the backbone and neither is Lucia. This game is lacking one, and because of that, I really didn't care about anything going on in the game narrative-wise, which is a shame. There could have been something here, but there just isn't. But hey, the series isn't known for its strong narrative, so if the gameplay is good, then that's what matters, right? Well, yes, if the gameplay was rock solid, I could overlook the flaws in the story. After all, it only took me less than 7 hours to beat, and that's with playing the game twice. But, oh boy, this is just not a fun game to play. Well, most of the time. Okay, there's a lot to unpack, so let's just dive right in. Devil May Cry 2 has made some changes to the combat and overall movement that, while nice in theory, just don't work with the game. Not everything has changed from Devil May Cry 1. We still got red, green, white, purple, and blue orbs that do the same thing, but this game introduces the gold orb. Yellow orbs from the last game have been replaced with the gold orb, which allows you to get back up with full health and Devil Trigger gauge when you die. You can only hold one at a time, but trust me, you won't be dying anytime soon. Personally, I like gold orbs more as it's a nice safety net. Another thing I like is the movement in this game. When you start the game, you are already given a lot more room to move around and even have a double jump. Not only that, but you have a dodge button that can also let you run on walls for a little bit. The locations are not all boxed in like the last game, and I am a fan of the more open design. But on the other hand, the fixed camera can be more bothersome because of it. The platforming can be a bit of a pain sometimes, but it's nowhere near as bad as it was in DMC 1. Another thing I like is the change they made to the Devil Trigger. Now you can get these stones/runes that give your Devil Trigger added effects. Could be something like more power, fight, moving faster, or even changing the element of your attacks from lightning, fire, and ice. It's a nice addition, and I kind of wish they would bring something like this back in a new DMC game. However, despite these new features, combat feels way more sluggish and boring than before. While you start with moves like the Stinger and Double Jump, unlike DMC 1, you no longer get new moves with red orbs. Now they are just used to make your swords and guns do more damage, which is not really that noticeable. The most you will be spending red orbs for is purple and blue ones. You don't even get any crazy other melee type weapons in this game. Devil May Cry 1 had the fire gauntlets, and this one just has 3 swords all with the same attacks. One is basic, one has longer reach but doesn't do much damage, and the last one does more damage but has a shorter reach. And given that they are melee weapons, you will most likely be sticking with the ones that do more damage. One thing I do like though is how different Dante and Lucia are in combat. Lucia is quicker but takes a bit longer to defeat enemies, while Dante has slower moves but they hit harder. On the subject of melee weapons, they even changed how you do combos. Now you have to press a direction before you press the attack button mid-combo to perform a different combo. It's a bit hard to explain, but it's not hard to do. My complaint is that by doing this, the swordplay feels repetitive and not as rewarding as it was in Devil May Cry 1. Despite that, there are still ranged weapons. Dante and Lucia even get different weapons. Dante has a more standard array of guns and a rocket launcher, while Lucia has darts, knives, and bombs that you will never use. Real talk though, I love what they did with the guns in this game. I mean, now you can switch on them on the fly without pausing. Oh, and I guess they also kind of break the game. So, I guess that's cool. Okay, I have no idea why the guns got such a buff in this game. I mean, while I love being able to just stand still and just shoot them all to death, it is pretty boring. Even the bosses are not much of a challenge. I mean, I can just spam my guns and win at all of these bosses, even the final one. But despite this, the game can be a bit BS at times. Like, oh, say the worst boss in all of Devil May Cry history. Oh my god. What even is this fish boss? No joke, this boss is the most badly designed boss I've ever seen. Let's list the ways, shall we? 1. You can't lock on. This wouldn't be an issue, but these bothersome camera angles I was talking about are making aiming near impossible. You more often than not can't see where the boss is coming from. 2. The boss likes to move very fast, and it's often hard to even dodge out of the way. And 3. The whole frickin' thing is underwater. This whole underwater section is the worst part of the game, mainly because you can't rely on your weapons at all. Look at this, what a load of carp. What even is a hitbox? So we have a boss where you have to use this sucky bow gun and deal with the underwater movement. That alone would be hard, but now we can't even lock on to the boss and have to manually aim at it. Oh, and it's not easy given the camera and that the boss turns invisible. This part of the game is so BS that I have to wonder who okayed this. The rest of the game is not even hard. In fact, the whole game is rather easy. I mean, when you can just spam your guns to win, the game would be easy. But this one boss and level will forever go down in history for one of the worst water sections in video games. Well, with all this in mind, I think it's easy to see why Devil May Cry 2 is the worst game in the series. Despite that, DMC2 did bring some ideas that would get carried over to future games, having more than one playable character, more open level design, different unlockable costumes, even Trish is an unlockable character, and most of all, Bloody Palace mode. Just a shame that it too sucks in this game. These rooms are just too small, and when you have to fight a lot of enemies at once, it can get hellish real fast. While I think I enjoyed the game more than I thought I would, I cannot say I recommend it, even to fans of the DMC series. Despite the changes made to help vary up the gameplay, the combat feels very stale in one note. At least we all know this is not the end of the series. Despite the critical reception, it did well financially, and a third game in the series was almost a given. But after how the last game was received, the team would have to make sure they bring their AAA game for the third one, and I think it's a safe bet to say that they did. With all that said, my name is Gumshoe, and thanks for watching.